For question 16, after identifying the tangent of both of these given angles and plugging all of this information into this formula, we arrive at this expression here. So this is not simplified. It's going to be our job to simplify it a little bit. So step one is we have fractions within a fraction. So we need to remove those. The simplest way to do this is to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the least common denominator of the two fractions. And since they have the same denominator, we're going to multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 3. This will not change the value of this fraction because root 3 over root 3 is equal to 1. But to multiply this to both of these terms, we have to use the distributive property. So that is, step 1 is take this root 3 and multiply it to this fraction. We'll have root 3 over root 3, and that is going to be equal to 1. Okay, I then have minus, and then root 3 multiplied to 1 is going to be equal to root 3. All right, next we're going to do the same thing in the denominator. We're going to take this root 3 and multiply it to both of these terms. Root 3 multiplied to 1 is going to be root 3. We'll then add, and when I multiply root 3 to this fraction, I'll have root 3 over root 3, and that simplifies to 1. All right, so we're even closer. I'm going to rewrite this so we have, I'll put the denominator as 1 plus root 3. I like to write it with the root at the end. So rewriting the whole fraction, this is 1 minus root 3 over 1 plus root 3. This is an issue. Technically, this is still not considered simplified, and the reason is we have an irrational number in the denominator. So there is a method that we can use where we can get rid of an irrational number from the denominator, and that's called rationalizing the denominator. To do this, we're going to multiply by something, and what we're going to multiply by is the denominator that we have here, but we're going to switch this positive to a negative. So we're going to multiply by 1 minus root 3. Now, I have to multiply by the same thing in the numerator, otherwise I'm changing the value of this fraction. So two things happened here. One, to get rid of this root, I just switched this positive to a negative, and I'll multiply these two denominators together. The second thing is, I had to put the same thing in the top of this fraction as I have in the bottom, so this fraction as a whole is equal to 1, and thus not changing the value of this. Okay, so we're going to have to distribute, so I'm going to set up some parentheses. And I'm going to start with the numerator. So here we're going to have to FOIL, I guess. We're going to have to take this 1 and multiply it to both terms in this expression. So I'll have 1 times 1 is equal to 1. I then have 1 times this negative root 3 is equal to negative root 3. Next, I'm taking negative root 3 and multiplying it to this 1, so I get another negative root 3. And the last thing is, I have negative root 3 times negative root 3. The two negatives become positive. And if you multiply the square root of 3 by the square root of 3, you're squaring the square root of 3, and that leaves you with just 3. We'll simplify in a second because there are some like terms, but I want to distribute the denominator as well. So by that I mean this 1 gets multiplied to this 1, so I get 1. 1 gets multiplied to negative root 3, so I get negative root 3. It's already looking a lot like the numerator, but something different is going to happen. When I multiply this root 3 to this 1, I now get a positive root 3. And the last thing I get is positive root 3 by negative root 3. So it's going to be negative, since I have a positive times a negative. And root 3 times root 3 is 3. The reason that we multiply by this denominator with a negative instead of a positive is because when you multiply those denominators together, you have a negative root 3 that cancels with a positive root 3. So these two things cancel. And the entire denominator has no negative numbers in it. So I'm also going to rewrite this fraction, but change the numerator as well. So the denominator is going to be 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. And the numerator is going to be, okay, well, the like terms are, I have a positive 1 and a positive 3, so that's a positive 4. I also have a negative root 3 and a second 1, so this is really negative 2 root 3. I have this. The last thing to do is to note that I can divide this negative 2 into both terms in the numerator. Negative 2 divides into 4. That gives us negative 2. And negative 2 divides into negative 2 to give us a positive 1 with a root 3 left over. And that makes this the completely simplified answer for this entire problem.